Hi folks, welcome to Scholarbot Tarot. Just call me Mayfield, and thanks a ton for stopping by the study space. So this was originally supposed to be an unboxing video until I just miserably botched it when I realized I get stage fright when I don't have a script on hand. So now you're getting a review. Today we're going to review an unofficial My Hero Academia tarot deck. It's called the LunarFlare, and it's a Dabihawks tarot fanzine. And this is going to take so much explanation. I'm going to do my very best for those of you who are not familiar with My Hero Academia. But I guess just very briefly, My Hero Academia is a really popular shonen anime that focuses on like superheroes and superpowers and stuff like that. This deck in particular centers two supporting characters from this anime. Oh boy. The two characters are pro hero Hawks and villain Dabi. I don't know how I'm gonna get through this because it's just too, it's so niche and it's a little funny too, but we'll get through this together. Just so you have a little foundation for who these characters are in case you are not familiar with My Hero Academia. Dabi is a supporting villain who appears later on in season 1. He has a fire quirk, specifically blue flames, which tends to run so hot that his body cannot handle it very well. So you'll notice in the deck, and of course if you're familiar with the anime, his face and many different patches of his body are just purple and gnarled. He's definitely the edgy type of character with daddy issues. I'm not gonna call that a spoiler because that's kind of obvious just by looking at him, to be fair. But he intends to overthrow, or at least help overthrow, the hero establishment due to said daddy issues. Pro Hero Hawks is a supporting hero character who appears, I believe, later in season 4, if I'm not mistaken. It's been so long since I've watched or rewatched episodes of it, but I'm pretty sure he appears in sometime in like season 4, and he becomes like a pretty prominent character rather quickly, I think. His quirk, or I guess superpower you could say, is fierce wings. He has a set of bright red wings with which he could control each and every feather, and he has I think he does very interesting things with his quirk. He's like that cool kind of calm collected character for the most part, with a great reputation amongst the people that he serves, or the people that he saves, I guess, despite him basically being a plant for the government, pretty much. Just a little child soldier who grew up with a fake smile. We'll definitely get into more detail later, but here's basically our agenda. And I did bring my notes because, as I mentioned earlier, I can't do this without a script, unfortunately. So first we'll talk a little about the folks behind the production of the deck and the production itself. We'll get into the card specs, we'll do a walkthrough, and finally we'll talk a little bit about the content and context of this deck. And I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I'm basically just gonna gush about my thoughts and I guess hot takes with regards to Dabihawks, which is the name of the ship. For the two people in my standard audience who know about My Hero Academia, I will let you know when there will be spoilers. I'll try to make sure I make that clear, at the very least in the description. Maybe I'll put like text down here. It's just so hard to figure spoilers out, because if my personal opinion, like I can deal with spoilers. That doesn't mess up like the, anyways. I'll do my best with spoilers. I suppose I can offer you a content warning. There is going to be some discussions on like smut, not very deeply, but you might hear me make a couple jokey jokes throughout the video, and I think in the final segment of Mayfield's office hours, you will hear my, I guess my preferences with regards to Dabihawks. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and get this party started. I don't really have an artist segment for this deck because this is largely a collaborative deck, which is what makes this so interesting, I think. The Lunar Flare is pretty much just a celebration of the ship that is Dabihawks. Just to get a definition out of the way, a ship is a phenomenon that happens, ideally in fandom, where a fan or community of fans speculate at best, daydream at worst, that two or more characters enter in a romantic or sexual relationship. Having a ship as a foundation for a tarot deck is surprisingly not new, but that'll be a conversation for another time. From what I can tell, the head honcho for LunarFlare is someone by the name of S. She's like a popular fanfiction writer who writes pretty exclusively Dabihawks fanfiction. I have read some of her work and I actually really enjoy it. I think she's a really awesome writer. She likes to focus in on like the inner thoughts of her characters, specifically Hawks, I've noticed. And I just think that it's very detailed and like introspective writing. I don't know. Clearly I'm not an English major, but yeah, I enjoy her work a lot. She's followed by a few other fan fiction writers and popular fan artists who specialize in, I guess, smut art, like the smut aspect of Dabihawks, including Elo, Estar, K, and many other pen names. So if you like same-sex smut, this is the primo stuff. It's nearly all Dabihawks, so you know, it is a niche. So the deck. Pre-orders for this deck began in spring of 2023. I pre-ordered mine in May. I specifically pre-ordered like the basic bundle to include the deck and any other stretch goals. And yes, this thing was not on any crowdfunding site, but it still had stretch goals and it met all of them. By their pre-order deadline, they exceeded like 600 orders. And a lot of the marketing that I saw was predominantly on Twitter. They did have a pretty active Instagram, although I noticed that Twitter might have been a little bit more successful, because I mean it reached me. Who knows how they knew my tastes in in shipping, but there you go. I do feel like their Twitter was much more successful in reaching a larger audience since the fans are so close-knit, I would think. S, for example, consistently retweets old and new Dabihawks posts and other MHA content, basically on a daily basis. The production team even did a better job at updating and responding to their audiences than like 60% of the Kickstarters that I've ever backed. Like, one of the things that I noticed that I really enjoyed just seeing on my timeline is that anytime somebody reached out to them with questions, they would post, you know, the question and their response so that everybody was on the same page. And I thought that that was, I just thought that was excellent, not only for like the customer service side, of course, but also for the sake of advertising and continuously appearing on people's timelines, because that shows how involved they are and how interested audiences were. So that was really cool. So any Hoosers, let's go ahead and get to the card and product specs, because $50 plus shipping for all of the stuff that the basic bundle got, that's how you do crowdfunding. So excited to show it off. Let's go ahead and head down to the study space to take a closer look. Alrighty folks, welcome down to the study space. We're going to take a look at some card specs. So I think first and foremost, I should probably specify, once again, since this is a collaborative deck, it is the different components of some of the stuff I received, I believe, are by different artists. I know for sure one of the artists that did like a particular piece, and it's actually the two-piece glossy box. This is the box that it came in, and this cover art right here, this is from Elo. I am actually I do actually support Elo on Patreon, so that's a full disclosure. I'm not embarrassed one bit though. But yes, the two-piece glossy box, it is perfect for getting voice actor autographs, which I think is what I plan to do. As for the cards, here are the actual cards. I believe they are standard tarot size. It is a linen finish as well, so very smooth. And there are brilliant gold edges. And I feel like the gold edges are like a nice, I don't know how to explain it. I feel like it's kind of a nice cross between like that really shiny gild and like a slight matte, because it's very glittery, and I don't know that it's picking up on camera very well, but I think that it's glittery like a matte gold would look like, but there's still like a really bright shine to it. I think perhaps one of the most interesting things that this came with was the fanzine / guidebook. All of the card meanings are in the back right here. But several select cards have short stories attached to the card art, written by popular Dabihawks fanfiction writers. S is also in here too, which I thought was a real treat. One thing that I absolutely love is this page back here at the end. It includes the signatures of all the artists, which honestly felt really just overwhelming to find, and I mean that in a good way. It just kind of goes to show you just how tight-knit the community is. And this one up here is Elo's, which I do recognize. And I do recognize a couple of these other signatures as well. So this was really cool. So as for the stretch goals, thanks to the thirst of the community, we got a lot of cool fan-made merch. Okay, so we got a keychain. This is 100% going on like my little mini backpack. It's got the Dabi's flames and Hawks's feathers. Nice little yin-yang thing going on. We also got a journal that has college-ruled paper, which is fantastic. I love this so much. I have no clue how I'm going to use it. I'm totally that person who loves accumulating journals and other paper stationery and then just gets severe executive dysfunction about what to do with it. But I absolutely love looking at this, and this is just incredible. I'm so happy that this got unlocked. We got a little placard. I'm actually not sure what this is called. I've been calling it a placard. It has both of our characters here, you know, holding hands. I mean, that never happens, of course, for those of you who do not watch this, who do not watch MHA, but yeah. Don't let the scratches fool you, by the way. I'm pretty sure I just didn't take the little thingy off. That was satisfying. We also got a Popsocket. I'll make sure, as for many of these other things that I don't recall the artist for, I'll make sure I put the artist at the bottom here. But yeah, Popsocket for your phone or whatever mobile device you have. I typically don't use these. There is a pretty there's a pretty heavy duty like case on my phone, so I'm not sure that I would use this, but I'm glad that I have the option to. And then the last thing we got was a really nice print. I'm gonna take a guess. I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm gonna take a guess and say this one was done by Estar. Let's see if I was correct. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and quiet down and throw on some tunes. Let's take a look at the actual cards and I'll give you my thoughts about the deck and the ship, just as a treat for me. I think the only criticism that I have is just a minor oopsies. I did notice that the Emperor and the Empress are switched, and it does look like it was an accident because the guidebook lists them correctly. Typically, your Empress is the number 3 in the major arcana, and the Emperor is the number 4. But honestly, like, there are only 2 characters in this deck. I'm not even remotely mad at it, and I don't see it affecting the quality of my readings. One could even make the argument that the centered character for its card, you know, I guess Dabi as the Emperor and Hawks as the Empress are, you know, switches. Please laugh. With that said, as mentioned earlier, and this is leading into the things that I really like about this, a lot of the artists that I at least follow on, you know, Twitter and stuff like that, well, a lot of the artists that tend to fall into my radar are, I suppose, what we might call like smut artists. They basically draw cartoon porn and doujinshis almost exclusively for this ship. Doujinshis, by the way, are manga versions of fanfiction, so these artists are essentially writers and storytellers too. To see their art in a non-sexual context was honestly a real treat. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not like uncommon, but, you know, still. Here's a card, for example, that a Dabihawks smut artist that I follow, Elo, on Patreon, had drawn. And, you know, Hawks isn't showing whole. That's incredible. In all seriousness, while I'm not even remotely the type of person to view smut as low art by any stretch of the imagination, I just think that it's always a pleasure to see artists that you're familiar with draw all sorts of different scenery and facial expressions to really demonstrate the extent of their talent. On that note, I mean, regarding the variety of artists, I am typically not a fan of collab decks unless the collaborative nature has a gimmick, like the Aliman's Tarot, for example. But this one totally gets a pass, I think, because the majority of cards are drawn close to what these characters may look like in the anime or in the manga. Yeah, this is coming from the person who said that they would probably never buy an anime-themed deck. Not only bought one here, but also the fact that it's anime and manga style is kind of what saves it. How ironic. But if you weren't familiar enough with the subtle differences between some of these artists, you probably couldn't tell the difference between those cards. And in doujinshi, that is not a bad thing. As awesome as it is to see an artist's stylistic take on a character from like a specific IP, like the Tower, for example, this one is actually pretty stylistic, I'd say. The ability to draw the characters close to model as they may look like in the anime is equally valuable, especially for the fandom. There's still a certain cohesion to it that the art just fits into the narrative, and, you know, we can play pretend and assume that it's totally real and came from the manga. Alright, with that said, let's go ahead and run a shuffle test and try out a reading. Alright, so here's our shuffle test. Let's see if I can do this on camera this time, because last time it did not go very well. But this actually feels a tad easier because I'm on a different space. Oh yeah, that's right. It's the bridge that I struggle with with the camera in front of me. That's alright. But it does feel pretty good. I mean, it is a linen finish after all. That's to be expected. I am feeling that the cards are a little bit thin. Definitely not a deal breaker, of course. I'm gonna do a couple shuffles off camera just for ease. Let's see here. Okay, and it bridges fairly well. And then hand over hand, all good. Okay. Okay, so today's spread, and it's just a 2-card spread. So this is a spread that I got from, I want to say it was a Tarot Symposium Instagram. It's called Who I Want to Be. I feel like this kind of deck would work very well with inner child work, considering the narrative that, you know, I'll explain a little bit in office hours, as well as some of the cards that we saw. Lots of child or depictions of our characters as children, which I find to be very interesting. Okay, so for the first card, the person I aspire to become, and the person I'm afraid of becoming. Okay, so let's see what we got. So the person I aspire to become, 5 of Swords. So facing our consequences. And the person I'm afraid of becoming, as I drop the whole deck of cards. And the person I'm afraid of becoming, the Empress. Perhaps being too over-nurturing, or perhaps being stuck in just a situation where you find yourself to be a nurturer for someone who might need to be nurturing themselves. Sometimes that's not always our responsibility. Oh, this was great, you guys. Oh boy, I think for context's sake, why not? Let's see if I can blurt this out, because this part is definitely not scripted, and I just got through with telling you guys how bad I am at non-scripted stuff. But I feel like the 5 of Swords in this context is so incredibly important, because these 2 characters are essentially facing consequences of their own doing, as is, you know, normal in your standard narrative. But I think it's particularly telling at how, I mean, how blissful Dabi looks here, but how hopeless Hawks looks. Because in my personal opinion, I feel like Hawks doesn't, I don't know, sometimes I feel like Hawks doesn't fully face his consequences as much as we give him credit for. I feel like he's in the same boat as Dabi at this point in the narrative. If you know, you know. And then for the Empress, the person I'm afraid of becoming, this is interesting too, because in the anime, I mean, this is a hero society, and without giving too much, both of these people do have aspirations to be the type of people to take care of someone else in some way. One of them completely abandoned that because they were essentially tossed aside. And I just think this is an interesting pull. I'm happy with this. This is gonna be great to work with. And I'm thinking inner child work might definitely be the thing to explore with this deck. And I think possibly even romances. I think I typically don't do relationship readings, especially not really for myself, but it might be fun to kind of dabble with that a little bit with this deck. Might be a fun thing to explore. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Alrighty, folks. Welcome to Mayfield's Office Hours, where I have a maybe tarot adjacent discussion about today's topic. Now, today, however, it is mainly just going to be me gushing about my fascination with this ship. Tarot audiences, you are dismissed if, I mean, unless you want to hear my ramblings in the background of whatever you're doing. You could just hear me talk about You can hear me talk about my fascination with, you know, these fictional characters. But I will make sure to explain as much as I can where necessary, as to not alienate you, because we're not in the business of gatekeeping information. With that said, MHA and Dabihawks enthusiasts, I mean, while this segment is really for me and you, let's exercise patience as others are being caught up. You will definitely hear stuff that you are well acquainted with, although do not hesitate to correct me on anything that I got narratively wrong, because I did not brush up on my MHA for this. I mainly just exist in the Dabihawks, like, sphere until the next season comes out. Some of the most recent chapters, it's just a blur. Like, so enjoy my, okay, so I'm gonna give you my preferences up front, and then I'm gonna offer you 3 hot takes about Dabihawks. So, for my preferences, because this is kind of important in the Dabihawks fandom, I guess, is that I really enjoy fan arts that depict Hawks as like a trans man, because I feel like that tracks with him. And I also enjoy fan fiction and fan art that depict Dabi as a bottom. Please enjoy my 3 hot takes regarding Dabihawks as a ship, in order of spoilers. Hot take number 1. You can argue with the narrative all you want, but you cannot argue with on-screen chemistry. Granted, this is a more, like, general statement on ships in anime, but it bears being said out loud. So, I know there are crack ships in MHA, as with many other animes, but let me tell you about the sheer strength of Dabihawks. You want to know how many scenes they're in together out of, what is it, 5, 6 seasons? Like 4, maybe. Like 4.5. In the manga, there's like this infographic that depicts, you know, the chain of relationships between characters, and they listed Hawks and Dabi as like using each other, and that definitely gets a lot of mileage out of the smut writers and fan artists. In the show, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, I believe this is an anime exclusive scene, right? Where Hawks delivers a very important package to Dabi, affectionately known as the Jorps. This is one rare occasion where I will explain nothing because it's not relevant, but I'm simply mentioning this because, I mean, you just saw 78 art pieces that depict them together, either explicitly or implicitly. And with all of that, like, you would think that they're the center of the show, but I mean, if you didn't know what MHA already was. But in fact, there are just parts of the fandom that don't even think about these characters. But, you know, these brief, like, no more than 3-minute scenes, I think, they give us so much of their personalities that I don't think we really see in their interactions with other characters. So, like, Dabi, for example, I feel like he acts a little bit more coy than usual with Hawks. You know, kind of working his shit, pounding the pavement, as he calls it. His little villain friends. But with other potential contacts, he just kind of lights them on fire, like on sight. But he doesn't do that with Hawks until the great divorce scene, where where Dabi seems kind of, I don't know, he seems kind of bummed that Hawks isn't actually on their side. And I don't know, Dabi insists that he didn't believe anything from the start, but, you know, the Jorp scene, my man, he seems so excited. And I feel like Dabi just showed so much enthusiasm towards Hawks in their, like, weird plans, with, you know, overthrowing the hero establishment. I don't know. That's just my opinion, I guess. Hawks, on the other hand, I feel like Hawks is like extra serious when he's around Dabi, which is not what we're used to seeing with him. I get it, there are high stakes to being a double agent, but he's nowhere near his playful persona that he adopts around his like adoring fans or his colleagues to be all buddy-buddy with them. Based off of his reserved attitude as like a child and the confirmation that he had to be professionally trained on interpersonal skills, it can be highly argued that maybe Hawks is like mostly himself when he's around Dabi. I guess this is just the Dabihawks dialectic. This here is the relationship of opposites. Two sides of the same coin in conversation with one another that simply prompt really more questions than answers, I think. And this comes up with every interaction, I would say. Like, that's all we have is questions. And I think that's definitely what fuels the flames in the Dabihawks fandom. Hot take number 2. Recently, it was revealed by Horikoshi, the creator of MHA, that the flame hero Endeavor, a central character for both Dabi and Hawks, was originally meant to be killed off in season 4, like right after he became the #1 hero. That didn't happen, but I sincerely believe that if it did, I think that Dabi and Hawks' like relationship, or perhaps even like their past in conversation with one another in the narrative, would have possibly been fleshed out just a little bit more. Endeavor just ruins everything, really. Like, please bear with me though. Here are my chain of thoughts, because it's gonna start like almost unrelated. So first and foremost, like, we don't actually know how Dabi and Hawks met. And I think a lot of the mystery fed into that ship for sure. And I bring this up because the inclusion of Dabi and Hawks as children in the LunarFlare deck I kind of think that they sort of refer back to like the child soldier theory, specifically for Dabi. My memory's fuzzy on this, but I'm pretty sure it was heavily implied that Hawks was privately trained before it was finally revealed in season 5. But before Dabi's backstory was revealed in that same season, like juxtaposed with Hawks, it was theorized by fans that Dabi was a peer to Hawks during his private hero training as a child. People would make fan fiction and fan art of this, I think, pretty frequently. And keep in mind, I entered the Dabihawks fandom a little bit late, so I would say that I entered after season 5 or 6. I really should have like made sure I got my seasons right, but I entered late when Dabi's backstory was already revealed. So I noticed that there would occasionally be fan fiction that would pop up in my feed, like old fan fiction that you would find, or fan art that you would find on Pinterest. A lot of that stuff referred to an older theory that was unfortunately debunked. But of course, I mean, in this deck, there's also inner child work at play, which could equally explain the child imagery. And that is fitting because both characters had incredibly awful childhoods that they never really healed from, yet they are foils for each other in connection with Endeavor. So the big reveal for both characters in the most recent season, as of this recording, is that Dabi is actually Toya Todoroki, Endeavor's eldest son, who raised him to be his successor as a pro hero, but basically tossed him aside because Toya's body couldn't handle the flames. And it still can't. Like, that's why parts of his body don't look all that healthy. Hawks, on the other hand, was revealed to be Keigo Takumi, son of just a small-time, like, criminal. I don't even think it makes sense to call him a villain because he just did stupid shit. But that villain would be captured by Endeavor. And Endeavor would pretty much be Keigo's hero and idol of sorts. After Keigo's father was captured, his helpless mother would sell Keigo to the government to be their personal, just super soldier and a plant in the hero world, pretty much. So with Endeavor being a shitty dad to Toya, but a savior to Keigo, that presents some interesting opportunities of contention, right? There's a lot for these two characters to explore and a lot for us to explore too. But no! Horikoshi just had to make Endeavor live and widen the gap between Toya and Keigo. Because at this point, Hawks is like, you know what? People can change. And I'm nothing like Dabi. So I'm gonna believe in you, Endeavor. You deserve a chance to redeem yourself in your shitty parenting ways. Meanwhile, Toya just slinks further into the sunken place. As a side tangent, by the way, that's been one of my main criticisms of Horikoshi's writing. The themes he explores they're like always nuance adjacent. Like he presents this like an interesting premise, right? A hero society, one that is suspiciously run like corporations. And that prompts very thought-provoking questions. Very relevant questions, I would also say, in like our real world, right? But he like misses asking those questions and then sometimes lands on a sort of answer. So the good news is it does kind of lead me to hot take number 3. And my hot take number 3 is I do genuinely believe that Hawks and Dabi may meet in some way, shape, or form in the epilogue. We are in the final stretch of the final war, folks. I am keeping up with the chapters kind of as they come out, and it's been a wild ride for sure. Like, I'm exhausted. I'm surprised Horikoshi needs to rest too, from what I can tell. He's taken like a couple of impromptu breaks, which, you know, I'm never mad at. Folks, manga writing is a wild profession that sometimes has no breaks, sometimes for several years to a couple decades. So I do not envy his workload. But at the topic at hand, I cannot imagine Horikoshi killing Dabi. Even if he does look a little rough right now, no lips, empty eye sockets, I think he's missing a few limbs. He's got all his hair still. He'll be fine. I can't imagine Hawks checking in on the Todorokis and or like some of the villains in connection with Dabi, namely like Himiko Toga, assuming she too survives, which I think is very possible. What would be super whack is if Dabi dies and Hawks just worms his way into the Todorokis as like a replacement Toya. That would drive me nuts. People like to joke around that Hawks is like such an Endeavor simp that he just wants Endeavor to be like his new daddy, which, whatever. But I hate it so much because I feel like we just wouldn't learn anything. And I feel like Hawks, like, I feel like I don't know what I feel like. I feel like just nothing would be really resolved with Hawks' character. Like, it would technically give Hawks what he wants, you know, a father figure that he's always imagined, but would it really, considering that it's Endeavor? And I don't know if I like Endeavor's arc either, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. But additionally, I don't want any more fuel to be added to the Endeavor Hawks ship. I just can't with that. Now, the ship between Hawks and Fuyumi is Toya's sister. It's not a bad crack ship, and is definitely an improvement to the End Hawks ship. But it would make me so upset. I just can't. You know what? I need to end this video before I just go into a spiral. Hey, what do you think about this deck? Like, did you like staring at all the pictures? I know I did. I'm really excited to use this thing, you guys. Are you an MHA fan? Am I completely delusional? Do let me know if I explain things accurately enough for you to follow, if you have little to no idea what MHA is. And if you do know about MHA, do you have this deck? If not, I do think that there will be extras on sale. I think they recently finished all the fulfillment for their pre-orders. But I'll leave their social media stuff and their website in the description below just in case. And also, like, there's a lot of good people attached to that production team that are worth a follow as well. But in the meantime, definitely feel free to share your questions, comments, or concerns. Just be sure to make discourse, not war. I will catch you next time, folks. Bye.